12 years, and I've served in a variety of capacities, and now here serving as interim president, and I'm loving it. I've learned so much about Daley, and I'm going to just share a couple things with you, make sure you're aware of all the amazing programs and opportunities that we have here. Maybe there's something for you or someone you know that could really benefit. But we offer programs in three realms, let's say: adult education, credit, and continuing education. So for adult education, we offer free ESL, English as a Second Language, and high school equivalency courses where students can earn their high school equivalency. It used to be called GED, but now we call it high school equivalency. So those are completely free, and we serve about 6,000 students annually in these programs. We also offer credit, which is our bulk of our courses, and that's where we do all of our liberal arts and sciences and all of our trades programs, including our illustrious manufacturing programs in our beautiful MTEC sister. I hope you've all had the opportunity to tour that. If you haven't, maybe you can go take a peek later today. But all of those programs are credit programs, and we support students either to finish their associate's degrees and transfer to 4 years, or finish their associate degrees and go straight to work. Whatever their priority is and whatever their goals are, we support students to meet their goals. We also have continuing education courses, which is really what we consider sort of upskilling in different ways. We offer welding as a continuing education. We have programs like industrial sewing, which is so cool, and our pool is now open, so we'll be starting to offer programs in swimming as well. But the pool will be open for the community, so maybe, who knows, maybe you'll come by and take a dip one of these days as well. Overall, we really want to thank you for your partnership here at Daley and for your support of our manufacturing programs. I know that most of you know and worked with our wonderful Dean, Dave Rosales, and also Steve Vanessa as well, and we're really proud of what we have to offer, always looking to continue to grow our partnerships, our programs, our offerings, and so I hope that you have a wonderful event here today, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful Dean, Dave Rosales.
Thank you, President. Thank you for that welcome. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I know there's absolutely nothing else going on in the world. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedules to see what we have going on here at Daley College at MTEC, the Manufacturing Technology Engineering Center at Daley College, as well as learn from the agenda that was put together here by Southland Development Authority, Cook County, the Metals Hub, M3, all the other partners that we have here at the college. So as our president said, we do have a number of programs in advanced manufacturing, short-term, long-term credit, non-credit. We're here to speak to you about that today as we're taking tours. If you want to connect afterwards, I won't go into much on that right now, just to say that there will be an opportunity to take tours later on today. And thank you for attending. What I would like to do is just so everybody knows, let's get a feel for who's in the room. And I know we have a number of, in no particular order, are there any government association or elected officials here today that would like to just say good morning? Very good. Manufacturers. Who's manufacturers here today? Manufacturers reps. Raise your hand, shout out your company name.
Ward Manufacturing.
Ward.
MTEC USA.
Foster Wood.
Yeah.
National Tube Supplies.
Southland House. American CNC.
Machining Systems Corporation.
MSC.
Tech.
Pardon me? Trim Tech, very good. Anybody else? Okay. Educational institutions. I know I've seen a few here. Yep. Thank you.
I don't think we can get it out of the YouTube.
We're going to need that.
Yeah.
University of Illinois.
Yes. All right. Community organizations. Our biggest supporters, recruiters.
That was the
Chicago Business.
Okay.
Representative.
Very good. Anybody else? Yep,
County Manager Industrial Commission.
thank you.
There is a store business circulator.
Okay.
She did a lot of Spanish tippers one list.
Awesome.
Bethel Family Resource Center.
Thank you.
Greater Southwest Development Corporation.
Okay. Any categories I missed?
Lending companies.
Lending companies.
Nonprofit lending companies.
Perfect.
For lending on behalf of the Small Business Administration, making America moving forward.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Get this based. Anybody else? Yep.
Always staffing, manufacturing staffing.
Okay.
On the stop technology part of the sourcing.
Perfect. Okay. Somebody else has hand raised? Yep.
Technology vendors, guide drill.
Guy, very good. On panel displaying upstairs. Anybody else? Couple back here.
Comment energy efficiency.
Fantastic. Thought last.
Also lending work, wood trust.
Okay. Thanks. Ricky.
Just repeat.
Perfect. Okay. All right. I think it just helps all of us. You have some idea who you might want to connect to today, as well as our panelists know who they're speaking to and can put it in context that might be helpful. Anyway, welcome. Have a great day, and looking forward to our agenda today. Man. See if I can see.
I'm going back to survive.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, good morning, everybody. Morning. I hope everybody got a chance to get a little caffeine, get some water, orange juice, something to eat. There'll be more time later on after the final tech and action case study that we'll do. But I'm excited to be here. First of all, it's an interesting time we're living in. Regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on, it's one of the most interesting times in the economy that I think we're going to see for a very long time. And manufacturing is kind of like at the epicenter of all of that, right? So for those of you that have made it out here, dealt with the construction, dealt with whatever's going on in the news, and have dealt with whatever you got in your business day to day, I just want you to give yourselves a round of applause, please, to acknowledge the fact that you made it here. And spending time with us, and it's very valuable. And I definitely want to make sure that we honor your time here today. So let me go ahead and pull up what I'd like to cover. It'll be brief, I promise. But first, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank all the key people that helped make this possible and the key organizations. So first, Daley College, MTEC, Dave and Stephen, you guys are phenomenal. Thank you for always being great partners. To my leadership, Bo and Felicia, you guys, if you don't mind standing so everybody can see you. You guys have great smiles. I don't know why, but they trust me to do crazy things like try to bring everybody out this early. But thank you for your leadership and vision. Thanks to our title sponsor, IMEC, the Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center. What can I say about IMEC? I mean, statewide, they've been tremendous at driving manufacturing forward. And to Summer Corps for making sure that everybody's caffeinated and has something to eat by sponsoring breakfast. Manny, Captain Sequel Settle Guapo, thank you so much for the 504 lending that you all do. It's really a benefit to businesses. And to Cook County Bureau of Economic Development, Irene, Christine, Jamie, Mercedes, Dominique, Sochi, you guys have been phenomenal champions of the work that we do and manufacturing in the region. And I just got a brief presentation to share. I promise it's only going to be about 4 minutes. We're going to talk about the metal stuff, but first, I just want to highlight the Southland Development Authority. It is an organization that I have the privilege of being a part of, and we work with homeowners, residents, obviously metals manufacturers, real estate developers, businesses, companies, entrepreneurs, municipalities, and governments. And we work to try to drive transformative growth of the economy in the South Suburbs, but Cook County more broadly. This year, we launched our inaugural Achieve Summit. Some of you may have attended. If you didn't, you missed out. Don't miss out again. We've had a phenomenal lineup of speakers, including Dave and John. And this is built for entrepreneurs, investors, developers, and business leaders, local elected officials to really be in the know of what's happening and making sure you're making connections to grow your business and the products that you're working on. Throughout this presentation, there are going to be some QR codes, so just have your phone handy to make sure you can stack some of these because you'll get more information from those. You can snap this and claim early access to the Achieve Summit happening June 2026. For those of you that are in business, and many manufacturers in here are, there is a $100,000 grant opportunity through Cook County's Bureau of Economic Development. The application deadline is October 31st, but I want to make sure you all can snap that because if you are manufacturing and meet the eligibility requirements, you may qualify for this grant opportunity. So the Metals Hub, the way to think of this is a consortium of metals manufacturers, so think foundries, machining, stamping, finishing, welding, and we try to pull those capabilities and capacities together to be more competitive as a region. And we help these members of our Metals Hub compete for new business opportunities. Many of us that are business-serving organizations understand that the folks we work with have a lot of their business coming from their top 2, 3, or 4 customers. We want to help them diversify that pool of customers. And I'm sure the manufacturers in the room would love to hear about how you can get more business. We do this through our CAS framework. We connect members to market opportunities. We accelerate operational readiness. We support workforce development. We team up for impact. We do this through our hub deal flow. So if you are a Metals Hub member, you go through a site assessment, you analyze your capabilities and capacity, and see how far along you are in the process of becoming OEM ready. If you are very far along in that process, great, we help you access opportunities in the private and government sector. And if you're not quite ready, maybe you do a lot of custom work, but you want to get into the OEM space, you can work with our team to identify the processes and the different operational improvements you need to make to become OEM ready. We also offer government contracting assistance through the Illinois Apex Accelerator Program, where we help you with bid matching, so make sure that you're getting those opportunities that are relevant. And we support you through certifications and all that good stuff when it comes to being successful in this space. Our business growth services team helps our companies scale and innovate. So if you are looking for a better marketing plan, if you are looking for a better way to access capital, maybe you need a pro forma, maybe you need a business plan refresh, we can help you with that as well. And we also like to connect our members to employee pipelines. Last year, we had an internship program where we took 10 high school juniors and seniors through about 320 hours of training and hands-on experience. We want to go ahead and do this again next year. So for the manufacturers in the room, please stay in touch because we want to make sure that you have access to this talent pipeline, right? And our next upcoming event, if you want to take a snapshot of that QR code, it's going to be all about workforce development. So construction and manufacturing focused. It's going to be a similar setup to this. You'll be able to meet with a number of workforce development partners, and you'll also be able to hear from experts around some of the challenges and some of the opportunities in that space. If you are an employer, you are more than welcome to exhibit there as well. If you have some openings, you're more than welcome to set up a table at no cost there. This will be November 13th at South Suburban College from 8:30 a.m. to noon. And that is my contact information, as well as Chris Cooks, who's our Apex Accelerator Manager. He is a government contracting person who can help you to diversify your revenue. And with that, we're all set. So what I'd like to do now is introduce our keynote speaker. Actually, no, I apologize. Irene Scher. Irene Scher is next. Irene Scher is Deputy Director Cook County Bureau of Economic Development.
Thank you. Sorry for jumping the gun. Okay.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Of course, President Bartlett was invited to join us today, and she couldn't. So, channeling for her, I will just say, feel free to move down. I do feel a little bit like it's a family reunion here. You all know each other. It's a close-knit community. So, I'm really excited to be here and happy to be part of this kickoff for what I think is going to be the first of an annual must-attend event. So congratulations to everybody who's put so much time and energy into planning this and nurturing this idea along. I do want to give some thanks to people. One, just to acknowledge Cook County and President Tony Preckwinkle have been champions of manufacturing. She's been a champion of manufacturing ever since she's been in office. So she is not new to this. She's a true believer in the importance of manufacturing. Secondly, the SDA, the county, Cook County, is so happy to partner with the SDA and to see the growth and development of the organization under the leadership of Bo Kemp and Felicia Hardy, and the innovation and the great array portfolio of programs that Mandy Vila leads as VP of Programs and Client Services. So all of that's exciting. Similarly, Cook County has partnered with IMET, also probably for about 10 years in lots of different ways, and they're thrilled to work with IMET and Dave Boulay. And then the biggest networker and champion that I know, Manny Flores. He is president and CEO of Summer Corps, and we're thrilled to meet the new president of Daley College, Peggy Corellis, and Dave Rosadas. Thank you for your hospitality. And lastly, well, not lastly, the team at BED, which includes Christine Napo, Mercedes McClure, Jamie Moore, Kyle Garms. Hope I didn't forget anybody. There are others not as involved in this, but involved in business services. And then lastly, thank you, Michelle Rodriguez, for serving as our keynote speaker. Today is all about examining the future of human-centered manufacturing and introduce the Smart Exchange, which is a vendor showcase of innovative technologies and ideas really intended to support manufacturers who are so important to our economy. I'd like to share a couple of compelling facts about the strength of the manufacturing sector here. Much of this I imagine you know, but do want to repeat it just because of its importance. So the Chicago region has the second largest manufacturing industry in the U.S., and that has held steady for several years. And now, I was just at an event yesterday where the Civic Committee of the Commercial Club of Chicago, which is, the top 300 Fortune 500 companies, has identified manufacturing as a growth sector. So I think we've come a long way. It's the growth, they've listed it as, and they consider it a growth sector along with IT and professional services and lots of other, actually only 4 or 5 other sectors. And in particular, as Mandy said, the region and particularly the south suburbs and the south side of the city have a large concentration of metals, machinery, equipment firms that specialize in many stages of the metals manufacturing process. And the density of that, in particularly the Southland, is almost twice that of the rest of the region. So there is a real nucleus of capacity and talent here. And then, as I said, the county's prioritized its commitment to manufacturing. We have invested in manufacturing, and all of the programs live under what we call M3 Chicago, which stands for Metro Manufacturing Momentum. And we know how rapidly the world is changing and the accelerated pace of technology, and that is really what today is about. We understand and we share with you an interest in understanding more about the opportunities created by technology, and we're retrofitting existing equipment. And our hope is that today helps manufacturers and related partners in their journey to find the right technology that will help you remain competitive, assess new technologies, and know what resources might be available to help you navigate the ocean. We hope today is an annual event, and we hope we're offering and building an easy on-ramp to explore these new technologies. Mandy already did a great job highlighting the Cook County Catalyst Grant, so I won't go into that in detail. There's flyers out in the foyer, and I encourage any of you to share that opportunity with anybody you think might find it of note. So thank you all for coming. I know it's going to be a great day, and I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, and that is Michelle Drew Rodriguez, who serves as the board chair at the Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center. Most recently, she has served as a partner at Roland Berger, which is a leading global management consultancy that works with executives to build resilience, unlock new opportunities, and drive transformation with purpose and foresight. So she is absolutely the perfect person to kick off today's event, and I'd like to invite Michelle to come up and get us started.
Thank you so much, Irene. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's great to be here today. I appreciate everyone. The construction and the traffic is no joke, as we all know. So really glad to see so many faces here. It's really a privilege to be here at Forge5 at the inaugural event with so many brilliant minds from academia, from industry, government, the broader community, and manufacturing ecosystem. I love that we're all gathered here today with one shared purpose, and that's to help shape the future of smart, human-centered manufacturing. We're living through one of the most dynamic periods our industry has ever seen, as Manny alluded to earlier. The way we design, build, and deliver is changing faster than many of us could have ever imagined. Global supply chains are being redefined. Digital tools are rewriting what's even possible on the manufacturing floor. And the line between technology and craftsmanship is blurring in remarkable ways. But amid all this change, one truth stands out. The future of manufacturing isn't just about smarter machines, it's about smarter collaboration. It's about putting people first at the center of innovation, where technology amplifies human creativity and not replaces it. We have a chance and a responsibility, if you will, to shape a new kind of manufacturing future. One that's not only more productive and resilient, but also one that's more sustainable, more inclusive, and more deeply human. Over the last 25 years, I've had the privilege of living and breathing this transformation, shaping and really driving it firsthand with a number of organizations. From large Fortune 50 manufacturers to small and medium enterprises, and through collaborations with institutions like the World Economic Forum, the White House, the National Association of Manufacturers, and many others. I've worked at the intersection of strategy, technology, and talent to help organizations really navigate this disruption and build long-term competitiveness. Through hundreds of projects and thousands of interviews, one key trend has really remained constant. No matter how advanced the technology, no matter how complex the supply chain, the true engine of competitiveness is human talent. It's people, their creativity, their resilience, and their curiosity who turn disruption into innovation and vision into reality. And I think, MTEC and everything that we're doing here today is part of that journey, part of that disruption, and part of that transformation. Earlier this year, I partnered with Manufacturers Alliance to take a deeper look at really what's driving global manufacturing competitiveness in 2025 and how the most successful manufacturers are navigating today's turbulence. Together, we gathered insights from more than 150 US-based manufacturing leaders, and I personally interviewed nearly 24 CEOs and senior executives across the US manufacturing ecosystem. What emerged was a clear picture of both challenge as well as opportunity. At the top of the list, weighing heavily on nearly every single conversation that I had, as well as our study results, was the geopolitical uncertainty, the thing that many manufacturers are navigating today. And this wasn't just as a temporary phase, though, but essentially a new constant. 90% of manufacturers told us that geopolitical risk is stalling their strategic decision-making. And now, with uncertainty rising more than twice that the level seen during the Great Recession, the only constant really seems to be the accelerating pace and growing intensity of change. Yet, among the self-identified industry leaders, we saw a very different mindset. Instead of being paralyzed by this volatility, they're using it as a catalyst, turning uncertainty into strategic advantage. These forward-thinking leaders and companies are reimagining their business models, expanding beyond product innovation into solutions, software, and services. They're embedding resilience and agility into the fabric of their organization, not as a reaction to disruption, but as a foundation for growth. Another key trend that we've all been seeing and experiencing and has a lot of tailwinds, particularly for those of you in the room, is localization. Local is the new global. As many manufacturers are looking to de-risk operations in 2025, the majority are now closely aligned with production to the end market. The local for local and region for region trend that began even before COVID is intensifying and accelerating. And the pace of the external shocks rising, global companies are moving not just production, but their entire supply base is closer to. In 2025, localization is less, though, for many, about massive new facilities, but more of a CapEx-like approach and strategy, repurposing existing capabilities, sharing space, focusing on relocating based on proximity. As one executive told me, we're not making big, new greenfield investments right now. We're making smaller, strategic ones that expand capacity through efficiency and automation. Speaking of which, 94% of manufacturers say that the current environment will have a significant impact on their digitalization strategy. And nearly 2/3 are accelerating digital investments to help manage these risks. I've seen similar stats locally through the recent IMEC studies as well. We're also seeing a shift of where companies want to be. Far fewer plan to relocate to Mexico. In 2023, that was 35%. Now it's down to 16% in 2025. China's attractiveness also continues to decline, now ranking 6th behind the US, UK, Japan, Mexico, and Germany. India dropped as well, from 4th to 9th. But there's good news locally, here in Illinois. On average, more than one business is moving to or expanding in Illinois each and every day. It has been a manufacturing hub for well over a century and has the largest manufacturing output in the Midwest, as well as more large-scale industrial sites than any other Midwestern state. Overall, manufacturers are prioritizing low risk over low cost in 2025, seeking stability, infrastructure, and proximity to customers. And I think those are attributes that help many of us today in the room. That's good news for American manufacturing and the Illinois local economy and ecosystem. But it also raises a new challenge, talent. As I said before, talent is the defining competitiveness factor moving forward. As we all know here in the room today, finding qualified people to run existing operations has already been difficult for some time. Adding new capacity will tighten the labor market even further. In fact, 64% of manufacturers say the skill gaps impacts their operations frequently today. One CEO put it simply to me, everyone's trying to put up factories and fighting for the same people in the same locations. 83% of manufacturers, leaders believe that geopolitical risk will make the skills shortage worse. As one executive said, the idea of strengthening U.S. manufacturing is great, but the challenge is you can't get the people. For jobs that require less skills, manufacturers are also now competing with many other employers, with workers really prioritizing flexibility, work environment, and purpose as much as pay. Another manufacturing CEO that I spoke to said it reminded him of why they focus on creating a place where employees feel at home, earn a good living, and know that there's a future for them. And of bringing culture, in many aspects, more than pay. Nearly all, more than 9 out of 10 manufacturers are embedding talent management and talent development into their workforce strategies. One executive, the chief strategy officer at Siemens USA, described their company's $500 million investment in 2024 alone just on employee learning and development, which is part of their broader lifelong learning strategy to build a more resilient workforce. At the same time, high turnover, especially among hourly workers, continues to challenge manufacturers. Digitization, automation, AI, many of the things that we're talking here today are truly helping to break that cycle. 85% of executives cite these technologies as key enablers to the talent shortage. As one CEO put it, we have to lower the intensity of our demand for labor. And we do that through using every single digital tool available. Ultimately, the future of manufacturing talent isn't about replacing people, it's about elevating them. Investing in upskilling, adaptability, and human potential will be the cornerstone of competitive advantage in this next era. So, as we look across these trends, uncertainty, localization, the need for talent, one aspect becomes clear. The future of manufacturing will be shaped not by the strongest or the fastest, but those most willing to adapt, collaborate, and invest in people. So how do we take these insights and turn them into action? Let me leave you with 3 imperatives for every leader and team member here today. First, lead with purpose and resilience. Resilience isn't just about surviving disruption. It's about turning it into strategic advantage. The best organizations don't wait for clarity, they create it. Build the muscle in your teams to adapt, learn, and act quickly. Foster a culture where experimentation and learning are part of every day of work, where change is celebrated and something to master together as a team. I've often seen the best and most practical solutions come from the frontline workers, those that are really facing the challenges on a day-to-day basis, finding very pragmatic solutions, and really deploying the technology in kind of new and novel ways. Second, on that note, is making technology human. Digital tools and AI are really fundamentally rewriting what's possible, but their true power comes from when people are empowered to use them pragmatically. Help your teams understand and even shape these technologies. When technology is demystified, it becomes a platform for innovation. The real competitive advantage and edge lies in combining digital intelligence with human imagination, really finding those use cases where the impact will be the most significant and help address some of the biggest challenges your organizations are facing. Third, and finally, invest relentlessly in your people. Talent is not a cost. It's the foundation of your strategy. Create pathways for growth, not just jobs. Equip your people to solve tomorrow's challenges, not just today's tasks. When individuals feel valued, capable, and connected to something bigger, they don't just stay, they lead. And so if we can do these things, if we can lead with purpose, if we can make technology human, and if we can invest rigorously in our people, then we don't have to just adapt to the next era of manufacturing. We'll define it. Together, we can build an industry that's more innovative, more resilient, and more human-centric. One that reflects the very best of what manufacturing has always stood for: innovation, craftsmanship, and progress, powered by people. Thank you.
All right, let's give it up for Michelle one more time. So, in my role as Vice President of Programs and Client Services at SBA, I get the privilege of traveling to different events and being able to meet very awesome people. And when I heard Michelle speak on a panel at the MTEC Women in Manufacturing event, I knew she would add invaluable insight to this discussion today. And there's a couple of key points that I think stayed with me. One was many of the best ideas that can kind of help transform your organization come from people closest to the work, and they come from the people on the shop floor, they come from the people on the front lines. So creating that culture where people are empowered to send those ideas up. You don't have to be right all the time, but one of those ideas can transform the way you do business. So I think that was super important. And the other thing was just realizing that we have a lot of untapped potential and a growing sector every single day. I wasn't aware that one business either relocates or expands every single day, so that's really exciting news. But with that, that's a great transition into our panel discussion that I'm very excited about. We have heard a lot about AI, a lot about automation, and there's almost these two camps. There's the camp that says the world is ending, everything's on fire, and AI is going to kill us off. And there's this other camp that says, this is very exciting. This is probably the best time to be alive, and this can change all of our lives for the better. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Hopefully more this way than it is with the first example I gave. But ultimately, what this discussion is going to attempt to do is demystify what AI and automation adoption means for your business and how to keep it human-centered. So we all know that implementing change in organizations is difficult, especially for legacy employees. They may be resistant to that change. But if you don't adapt and you don't change, everything else changes around you and you kind of disappear in the wind, right? So hopefully we'll demystify some of the, what people are saying about AI, but also get some insights on how to adapt, and change and keep it human-centered. So at this time, I would like to invite our moderator, Daley, president of IMEC, to the stage, as well as Divya Bell, CEO and president of PMA Friction Products, Stephen Krakow, director of manufacturing with OneTrack, Nathan Navianti, sales engineer with Fusion RoboJob USA, and Alexa Johnson, senior account executive with Guide.
I think we're going to run this bunch right over here.
No fun.
So good morning, everybody. Tough question to start the day for the audience. Many of you woke up and thought of the word productivity. Anybody?
Come on.
Manufacturer. Anybody else? Productivity. We know it's important. It's also not necessarily the word that inspires us, right, in many ways. And yet, it is the foundation of manufacturing. Manufacturing is facing its challenges. If you look at U.S. manufacturing, we're about a decade now of manufacturing productivity being flat, in some cases actually declining. This should be a concern, right, because of what it means for competitiveness, what it means for wages, what it means for our communities. And productivity, in its very shorthand, is upskilling. It is investing in technology. You need both. I got a report on about productivity, workforce, and automation, and it plays this out, and the punchline of it is workforce and automation. That's why I'm really excited about the title of this and the discussion we're about to have, which is human-centered innovation, human-centered technology, and how do we leverage both for the success of manufacturing? Because our future, the opportunity before us, is incredibly bright. There's so much happening in manufacturing. It might feel a bit bumpy at the moment. The opportunities for U.S. manufacturing is strong. With that, really happy to have this panel and this discussion that we're going to have exploring the human-centered and the technology-centered approaches to how we think about business. So, I'm going to turn it right to you as panelists. Divya, I'll start with you. If you can, just a brief introduction of yourselves. And when we use the phrase human-centered innovation, what does that mean for you?
Okay, starting off with the, let's see if this is on. Can you guys hear me?
Press and hold the power button until the green light comes on.
How about now?
Whoa.
Hello? Okay, there we go. All right, sometimes technology takes some time. So just patience and a smile. My name is Divya Bell. I am the president and CEO and also owner of PMA Friction Products. I'm an engineer by trade. My undergrad master's is industrial, so I've loved the floor for a long time. And my PhD work is systems engineering, where I really fell in love with aerospace. Most recently, I spent about a decade at a publicly traded aerospace company where I was the vice president general manager of our hydraulics business, flight actuation, spoiler control. Prior to that, I was vice president of program development on our fuel engine side. But I love manufacturing, and I grew up in Illinois, and I really believe that we can do great things here. So I said goodbye to that amazing career, and I founded a holding company called BKV Holdings, and we have our first acquisition, which is PMA Friction Products. We're in long-term hold. We're going to hold for generations and building this for my family and my kids for the future. So we talk about investing in those companies that are either growing or expanding. We hope to be one of them. And the first thing that we thought about in this sale was we wanted our customers not to be impacted, and we wanted our people not to be impacted. PMA is a 40-year-old company. We bought it at 40 years old, and so there's a lot of legacy and employees and things that we had to think about in this transition this past year. But employees first, and that's our value. Our people come first. And so when I think of human-centered innovation, I think of empathy before ideation. I think that you don't go to solve automation as a problem. You don't solve AI as a problem. I don't sit at my desk and say, how am I going to implement AI to be like those 57% of CEOs that want it? No, that's not the problem I'm solving. The problem I'm solving that's on my strategy map is we want to be the employer of choice. We want to have a safe workforce. We want to have R&D and production scaling at a speed and rate faster than anybody else and any of our competitors. AI plays a part in that, automation plays a part in that, but that's not the objective function of the equation we're solving. So I think of when you sit down and solve a problem, are you people first? Do you have empathy for jobs that are hard, tough, hot? We're in hydraulic press operations, and those are heavy. They can get hot. They can get steamy, and so we want to solve those problems. So that's just what I think of first.
It's one. We begin.
Good morning. My name is Steve Ryko. I'm the Director of Manufacturing at OneTrack in Chicago, the AI development company. And I've been working in manufacturing for about 40 plus years. Work mostly in military aerospace sector, building all sorts of avionics. I probably have something I've built or designed on everything that flies. So quite an involvement there. I also work in a lot of industrial automation applications as well. What human-centered innovation? All innovation is human-centered. I haven't found a machine that invented anything yet. And everything comes from somebody's head. And it's your abilities to take something out of your head and build it and make it and then make it work. A lot of times it doesn't work, at least not the first time. And I've been in a room, we were making a reconnaissance camera for the F-18, and it had to be lightning strike compatible. And everybody knew what that meant, but nobody had to do it. We had electrical engineers and all their CAD tools didn't know how to design it. We had all the mechanical guys, and their everything in their head couldn't design it. I couldn't get a drawing or nothing, so I went in the lab with my trusty assistant, and I built it out of the vision I had in my head. And then we had to rebuild it 2 other times because the first 2 times failed. But then it worked, and it actually survived lightning strike. And then I went to those guys and go, now you got to design, make the drawings, so now we can build it over and over again. That's what it is. AI is just another tool like a screwdriver or a hammer or whatever. How many people have a roof on their house, and how many people who put those roofs on the house actually use a hammer and swing a hammer anymore? Never. They use an automated tool. AI is just another automated tool. It's nothing to be afraid of, but it's just another tool. But everything is humans.
My name is Nathan Galeanti. I work for Fusion RoboJob in sales, so I have the honor of traveling around shops, seeing different things, different people every day. So I have a lot of experience in different parts of the field, and I can't let go. The point of AI automation being a tool enough, we kind of specialize with a higher mix, lower volume shop. So most of the shops that we're dealing with are smaller, family-run companies. Talk about adapting, changing, things like that. It's hard. It's hard to say to somebody who owns a small business whose father, grandfather, family started the business many years ago. Hey, we would like to talk about introducing robotics into this. It's scary. It's for. It's a tool, and there's no other way to put it. Not to say anything much about us as RoboJob, but all of our products, they're called Assist. You mentioned not using a hammer on the roof anymore, right? And the example I always use is, you don't go to the river and wash your clothes anymore, right? Everybody has a washer and dryer at their house. That's automation in a sense, but you still need somebody to load them. You still need somebody to fold your clothes and hang them up, right? It's just using tools and being smarter, more innovative, and figuring out the way to get the job done more efficiently. That's really what automation is. Anything that I've seen, at least from my perspective, in being automation, there's nothing that's replacing a person. You can't have a robot programming or doing creative work on a machine and manufacturing, but it can take repetitive jobs and it's more tedious tasks out. You can also make things safer, so you might not have somebody standing putting 200-pound parts into a machine every day. You can automate something like that so that whoever is programming or was running that machine previously can become more efficient, grow into a more skills-based job, and ultimately find more satisfaction in pro.
Hey everyone, I'm Alexa. I am a senior account executive at Guidewheel. Background in software sales, spent a lot of time at Gartner. more recently moved into selling technology to manufacturing. I also have the pleasure of going to a lot of different manufacturing plants and factories and speaking with directors of operations, plant managers and supervisors, and really just understanding what their day-to-day challenges are. And so when I think of human-centered automation, it's really getting down to what are the day-to-day challenges and pain points of people that are closest to the process, and how can we enable them and empower them with tools and technology and data to give them more visibility to empower themselves, their teams, to drive improvements.
So what inspires me with everything they said, I did not hear the word productivity, but I heard everything about productivity and the way that it works together, and particularly how you talk about it, human first, that there are tools. I want to dig into that just a little bit more. If we think about it as balance, you got to balance the technology and the needs. How do you balance human first and investing in automation? And then the sub-question to this, how do you talk about ROI? Because at the end of the day, there's a cash proposition in all of this, right? And so we'll leave this as jump ball. Whoever wants to start with this, and we'll go.
I got the mic.
Oh,
It all starts with customer focus. You don't do anything. If you do things in your organization without your customer focus first, you're probably going to fail anyway. So what are you doing to best serve your customer base? And then it's how do you go about doing it and how competitive you are. Nobody's going to lose their job to AI, but somebody's going to lose their job to somebody using AI. So how competitive are you? How do you have a customer focus that goes down to everybody in your organization? How do you develop competitiveness and the comfort to the culture of change? Michelle mentioned 2 or 3 things. How do you reward your people that are your innovators? And then how do you develop the change, and it's a comfortable change, and you're doing change? We develop processes that maybe last 2 to 3 months, and then they're obsolete. We have to come up with new ones. So we're constantly changing and evolving, but all in focus of serving our customers the best way. What would I?
I'm going to give kind of a provocative answer. That's okay. I don't think Dave would expect anything less. I don't think that you should automate everything. So I bought this company, and I have a mentor who's my lean mentor. He's been an executive at GM for a very long time. His name is Jeff. I always seem to be in jobs where I know less than I should, so I collect mentors pretty fast. And so I told Jeff, I bought this company, and we can automate everything, and we've got these processes. And Jeff goes, slow down, Divya. You don't need to automate everything. You automate where you need to. You put in automation and AI where you need to. Don't spend money where you don't need to spend money. So, does everything have an ROI? It honestly has to, and it should. Now, you can never put a price on a human life, but you can think of the cost that it takes to lose an employee and the cost of turnover and hiring. You can think of the cost of having to bring in people who are not happy. You can think of the cost of not meeting cycle time or losing a customer. And so even when you start with empathy, even when you start with our value and our principles, our employees first, that means that we want to keep them, and that means that we want to retain them, right? I mean, the true tactical part of it is you have your strategy deployment, you go into your metrics that are important, you go into the watch metrics that are important for each driver, and you can get a cost to that. And where you feel that you have the most cost, if your employees are your number one strategy, then the cost of losing them is big. And I think that's where you work the ROI. You just match it with where your strategies are. But don't go putting automation in for fun. Put it where you really need it.
I have to agree with that. Even coming from somebody who's in automation sales, it doesn't make sense ever. The ROI on automation that you're putting into place, if it's not utilized, if it's not embraced by the people within the company, the ROI will be next. I always say the toughest thing to do when introducing automation to a shop, it's actually harder to reintroduce automation to a shop that's already tried with it. And it's so much easier to have the conversation up front, because if somebody tried something and failed, they said, oh, well, we have robots, we have automation here, it doesn't work, our people didn't use it, our people didn't like it. So really taking the time to figure out where it works, where it's needed is very important, because it's much harder to give it a second shot. ROI, automation can run most of it. Automation can run nonstop, it can run lights out, it can run on the weekends. It really depends on the utilization and your people push their role into Chris.
I would agree with Nathan. We, especially from like the technology vendor side, we don't want to solve all of their problems, but we want to empower and strike the balance between the human element, the operators, the folks on the floor, like I said, closest to the process, feeling empowered to use the technology to have this overall visibility and to continue to drive improvements and change across the floor, because they have access to data, tools, technology that's going to help them like progress forward.
So the moment that technology meets workforce, and so there's technology playing out, and it's changing the skill needs in the team. And it is a bit disconcerting when I've walked into plants and I do see lights out, second shift. And it's like, wow, where are the people? And yet talk with the company and you learn about their job growth because of what's going on. Right? So it's a complicated story. But that moment of skills are changing. The moment for upskill. The moment for changing the jobs, the skills, the talent. What are some of the approaches or best practices that you're seeing or experiencing? If you got the mic first, that's sure.
Yes, so upskilling is a huge factor in things. I mentioned previously, automations never go up. I shouldn't say this, but automation is never going to be programming your machine. It's never going to be testing parts as accurately as a human can, right? You have to have people involved in manufacturing to be running things, to do more creative tasks. Automation will never be as creative as you're not. But it can and eliminates the tedious aspect of it, so that not only can your current employees, they can grow into more skilled positions, like somebody who is doing a machine, they can go into program, they can go into testing, they can go into design, rather than standing at a machine all day, replacing parts in between cycles. It also, it gives companies the ability to scale with the people they have to start. So instead of having somebody sitting at one machine all day, you can go and work in different aspects of the company, so you can be sustainable now, but you're also going to be more attractive for employees in the future. Just like was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of manufacturing in Illinois, in the Chicagoland area specifically. Employees have a lot of choices, and you kind of have to differentiate yourself from the shop down the street in order to gain access to that talent. You mentioned the shops are coming to the Chicagoland area, coming to Illinois, and the employee pool is shrinking. So you have to differentiate yourself in order to gain access to that. See.
So in terms of like upskilling, what Guide Wheel does is provide real-time visibility into the factory floor. So we are here to give operators, give supervisors, leaders the data to actually then go and look at trends, go and uncover hidden capacity. And in between all of that, we're seeing across the shop floor that operators are taking more ownership. They're looking at trends themselves. They're hoping to become more creative problem solvers using some of the technology. So I hear stories about this all the time, actually, from operations leaders that I speak to, that they see this kind of changed behavior and motivation and encouragement to upskill across all different levels within a factory floor.
So the question of where does technology meet workforce. And most recently, some of the most impactful things we've seen is with agentic AI or vibe coding. And that's the newest, latest trend. And it's really, really explosive and powerful. I give a couple of examples. The first one is we do a lot of shipments of our products to our customers, and everybody wants to know the status of it, but they don't have the time. It's really great at reducing mundane tasks nobody wants to do. So everybody wants status of where everything's at with UPS, but it's very cumbersome to find this out. So we created an AI agent that has our access, our password, and everything to get onto the UPS website 4 times a day. The agent accesses the website, gets around their "are you a bot" thing. It's pretty ingenious how it did that. Gets around their blocking the bot thing, downloads all the access, and publishes it on a Slack channel that everybody has access. So if you want to know the status of it, you see it updated 4 times a day. A very mundane task, and if you had one person constantly looking at providing status, it's kind of a waste of time, and nobody wants that job. It does a great job of doing that. A second example is we have a field service one, and we named this bot Finn. It actually has a human name, so some customers actually think it's a human. And they're like, Finn works like 7 days a week and at 4 in the mornings answering emails. And it's not, it's a bot. But Finn it's really amazing because it goes and it answers questions, downloads if you need a procedure how to replace a fuse. It gives that to you immediately. It gives them immediate response. It schedules field service. Finn will come in Monday morning and say, "Hey Steve, do you have these parts in stock so we can send them to a customer?" And I always answer, "Good morning, Finn." I treat it like a human. But Finn does really great interfacing with our customers, and they're like, "Well, have a great weekend. You got any plans?" Finn asks our customers, "Yeah, I'm going up north to go fishing." Finn will email it again on Monday and go, "Hope you had a great weekend. Did you catch anything?" And it's just amazing the power of some of these agentic things and how they communicate almost like a real human. But they cut down so many routine tasks. And I forgot the guy with fishing, and, but it helped so much. The person felt, "Oh, it's nice that you asked me fishing. Yes, I caught 2 bass." Right? And it really helps, make the customer interaction warmer and stuff. And it follows up on tons of tasks that sometimes we forget. You got 100 things to do today, and it reminds you, "Hey, Steve, you got 99 done. Don't forget the 100th, And so it does all that routine stuff brilliantly.
One of the areas that we've had some success with AI is on our engineering research and development side. So, I come from aerospace where it's more prevalent, right? And AI for the engineers, it's just machine learning, right? It's been around for a very long time. It has just a catchier name now. But we've used machine learning and digital twin for decades. It's been around. And coming into now a mid-sized business in a different market, in the friction and industrial market, there aren't as many digital twins and system dynamic models in this space. And so I'm bringing some of that behavior into play. But we don't have, any more PhD systems engineers on staff. We have great employees that we want to keep and value, including the old owners that are staying on with us because they love what we're doing. But that's a skill set that we don't have. And so by using AI, we built a digital twin of our friction material development into our brake and clutch systems that allow our design engineers to act as systems and product engineers because it gives them the ability. I always feel that system begets behavior. And so the AI model will feed simulation, it will feed design of experiments, and it will give them the behavior that they would need multiple engineering degrees to do, and they can do that now in 3 to 5 seconds. It allows them to partner with our customer. It elevates them. We see them speaking to the data in a way that is just so neat to see. And so that upskilling is bringing talent and development and career pipeline to those who, that's a very binary of engineer or not. And now they have additional opportunities. So we've kind of had fun with that.
So we've talked about the ROI case, a little bit, how to invest in customer-focused technology. We've now talked about upskilling. I think, Michelle, as you said, the invest in people, right, is a priority. And then, should I call it make catch do it? So let's get a little bit into the culture side of this storyline, which is, we can go whatever direction you want with the culture, but I'm going to take it down to problem solving and continuous improvement. How do you think about keeping the culture, retaining the culture, enhancing the culture, integrating new technologies? You guys think you're ready to be up?
I have the mic, but I definitely don't have all the answers. I mean, I think if anyone had the answer to create great culture, we'd be very busy. And it's a labor of love. It's a labor of, quick, easy experiments. But for us, it's always starting with the why, sharing the data, sharing the why, and then building that trust with your team. And as they see you automate and start your journey in areas of places that they don't really want to be, that can get that buy-in. And I love what you said, that it's really hard to implement or it has failed before. We see that so much. And so we have some areas in our floor, we have some jobs that are really tough to do. And so that's where we're starting our automation journey. We have a couple of areas of automation, but kind of bringing it into larger scale. So I think you got to bring them along and allow them to see that automation is not in replace of them, but it's for them. And you build that culture day by day, decision by decision, right? There's a great book that I'm reading called On Character. And in the book it talks about that culture and character is not just who you want to be. It's not an AI strategy. It's not I want to be these things, but it's really this personification of your vision and your discipline. And so it's every decision. Are they in every decision? And they see that over time, and you build that culture over time. I know it's not an easy answer, but I don't think that this is an easy topic.
Building culture in one organization is somewhat easy. Building it across the general population is extremely difficult. We work for a small company, and we can be extremely selective in who we hire to find people that love change and thrive in that thing, in that environment, and continue to work that way. But then peanut buttering across the entire population is hard, because for each job we look to hire, I interview sometimes 50, 100 people and just select one. And it's very easy to take the top 1% out of the candidate pool. But what are the 99 people doing? And I thought, and I have an example is my sister-in-law works for a company, and she's opposed to change. I just want to work at my job and do the same thing I've done and enter my data and close my accounts the way I do. She does it in finance and accounting, and she still uses a 10 key. I'm like, why do you use a 10 key? Because in my Excel thing, I want to check and double check that the number's accurate. And I go, if your formula's correct, it can't be wrong. I don't know how to do the formulas, and I'm not going to start now. And I know it's family, so I ain't gonna. So I'm like, how about the Bears, right? How do you change that culture? And I just walked away from that. I had the opportunity to walk away from that. But if I was their employer, it'd be like, how do I deal with that? And so part of that is really fairly difficult of how do we as a culture do that. I was talking to Dave about, everyone's afraid of AI coming in, and kids don't have to study anymore. They can just download their term papers and stuff. I go, have an AI class and give them a problem and tell them to use every AI tool possible to come up with a solution to this real-world problem and see who has the best one. Because it won't totally solve the problem, and then you have to use your mind to pick and choose of the options that AI presents of what actually works and then make it work. So that, I think, going through the schools and the culture and I coached a million sports. People would be mad if they didn't get a participation trophy. Get rid of that stuff and get people to compete and get them to learn and get them to be hungry for change, and try to get that across a larger spectrum of the Gaussian distribution that it is, as opposed to just the top 25-30%.
Automation and AI are not going to improve culture. I think culture's there before the integration of it, and if you have an adaptive culture, within a company, it's going to succeed. And if you don't, your days are limited, in my opinion. It's not going to be something that's going to come in and fix. If you have people that are willing to be creative, willing to be innovative, willing to change, adapt, you're going to thrive. But this is kind of a short answer to it. I don't think automation or AI are the answer to culture. I think culture is there for. So people who have it will succeed. Those who don't will not.
When I am selling and implementing GuideWheel, obviously an AI automation technology platform, this conversation comes up a lot with operations leaders. They ask me, are my operators going to feel like they're being watched or being replaced? And this is absolutely something that's completely understandable. And I actually was chatting with a operations leader the other day. He was sharing that he 100% had that fear that their operators were going to feel like they were being kind of like Big Brother or watched or again replaced. And over the course of time and having more of that leadership visibility, or the operators having more understanding and visibility into why we're implementing new technologies, he was sharing that he's seen kind of like a motivational change across the plant floor, that people were more excited to take ownership of their part of the overall production, and really just not to disagree with anything, but I think some of the culture can be influenced by the technology and the ways that leadership is investing in their people and giving them the opportunity to upskill and learn and feel kind of that momentum.
All right, so there's two more questions I want to touch on, and time is winding down a bit, so we're going to go to the lightning. We're going to go faster. But just kind of wrap up on what you're saying. The phrase I didn't quite hear, I think it was a better way of saying, is change management. The change management itself is so embedded in culture. I mean, it has to start there. So effective change management, I think, is so essential for the evolution that the case. First, lightning round question. So if you can keep it 3 sentences or less, or 4 bullet points. And I want to just dig into AI just a little bit, because it's got a lot of attention, a lot of nervousness. But what's going on? How do we as companies, how do we as leaders deal with the ethics, the transparency, just the use of AI in our companies? Just want to kind of dig into that, because it's a question that comes up, and we've been weaving AI into our dialogue. So next thing you want to start.
Yeah. I think it's all about transparency, giving that visibility, understanding, making sure everybody understands how we're going to use the data, why we're using the data or the technology, and keeping it, I said transparency already, but being really transparent about why we're investing in AI and how we're going to use it.
I think in the near future, with how new it is, just being willing to adapt, being willing to kind of focus it where it's needed. Taking too much data is almost it's more of a hindrance than a help. So I think for the very near future, AI just need to. I think it's still being bigger.
I don't have my answer yet.
On to a bullet point route. I think shared values, your vision, your strategy, and transparency.
You mentioned ethics, and I don't know what you mean by that. I know what you mean by that, but I don't know what you mean by that. You know what you mean? Every company I worked for, and the more you get into it, there's some ethical issues that they like to sweep under the rug. AI technology isn't going to solve any of that. It comes down to the moral leadership of the company and what you can get away and what you can't get away with. What AI is going to do and what technology does is just provide sometimes a clearer input of what's expected of you and what you're going to get done. For example, everybody what are you getting done? What's your net result at the end of the year? And you could predict that better. You could have some things, and I could get more achieved done and a higher productivity rate, and there's less confusion between you and the management and you and the leadership, and it provides clarity with that and a ton of data. Also, its abilities to manage data. Most companies that we deal with are data phobic. They're like, we don't want to deal with the data. And we're good at dealing with the data, so we do it. They're like, take all of our data. Which can go to the ethics. You have to be careful who you share your data with, and somebody who's reputable and honest about and transparent. So I think when you do have data about your manufacturing operation, make sure you're careful about who you may share it with, and then how it's being managed or manipulated through AI for a competitive advantage, because that data would also go somewhere else.
2 bullet points. Put your cybersecurity that you tie together. And the second one is start AI policy. If anyone needs one, we have one you can use as a draft, but having something that sets the framework, the conditions to understand the rules in your company, I think is quite. Final question. Given everything we've covered, ROI, upskill, culture, specifically on AI, what's your advice to manufacturers, wherever they are on their journey? What's your advice in a couple sentences for where they go from here?
There's this mystique about AI, and it's kind of like jumping off the high dive. How many people have ever jumped off a high dive into the swimming pool? Right?
Okay, so.
And so all those people that didn't raise their hand did it. You have to do it. You get up there, your knees shake, you don't know, you're like, but once you dive in, you got to run back to the ladder and right back up there to get diving again. It's like, oh, that was the coolest thing ever, right? And so everyone who didn't ever jump off a high dive, you don't know what you're missing. And to me, that's what it is. It's definitely a high dive. Walk up to that platform, come over your fears and jump in.
Wait.
I'm scared now. That high dive, and I don't want to do that.
I think 2 big things are optionality. I sit on the NAM board of directors, and there was a wonderful presentation. I think it was Accenture that shared, we think AI is going to be the future, but we also thought that about, what was it before CDs, the other one that didn't go. So build yourself optionality. So only invest in AI, and automation where it makes clear sense, where you understand that there's a quick payoff. I always think that automation payoff should be between 6 months to a year. Beyond that, it's probably too much. Sorry, guys. That's my CEO tip. I like a 6-month payback on those projects, because you want to make sure you get the clear return, because technology is changing so fast. So we don't know what's coming in here. The other side is a really fun way to kind of dip your toe in the water. Is find an employee, and this is a really great way sometimes, and no generation bias that gets some of your younger generation teams engaged. There's usually someone who's, they're doing a lot of fun stuff. Was this like, sorry, I wore bullets. Find someone who's passionate about it. Give them some free space to go play and work some fun projects, a little sphere of influence with somebody that's got some excitement around it, and let them do some of the peer influencing and be that sphere of influence. And that's a fun way to kind of dip your toe in the water and get the team engaged. Sorry.
My advice would be to start with your people, not your technology. I think the most successful adopters of automation technology that we've seen begin with understanding what challenges people are facing every day, and then using technology to work backwards to make their work easier, safer, more impactful, drive improvements.
One word of advice I would have, starting wherever you're at on your journey, find someone who's where you want to be and ask them for advice. There's so many manufacturers in this room, in the area. It's a tight-knit community, someone mentioned earlier. Find someone who's maybe tried something that you're looking to try. Figure out what worked for them, what didn't, and then adapt it to what works for you. Because somebody's probably had the idea before, and if they haven't, then just get that thing about it.
Panelists, thank you very much for your insights, your passion. Let's give them a
trying to highlight a low barrier to entry option into adopting technology that can actually be successful in helping reduce compliance issues and improve training. And National Tube Supply has a great story about how they were able to do just that and saw an amazing ROI. And I think this is a really good way to get your folks, we talk about culture, it's a really good way to get folks to be exposed to change through something that's interactive, like VR training. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Craig and Mitch, and we'll start in just a moment.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is going to be a really fun session where we're going to talk about some of the actual implications in a case use study of technology in an actual manufacturing environment, and what that looks like, how we did it, and then how it can work for you as well. My name is Mitch Dickey. I am the State Workforce Manager for Transfer. We, and I'll go into more detail on this, are a workforce development company that leverage AR as a really fun, engaging, and hands-on tool for workforce training as well as career exploration. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but Craig?
Yeah, hi, I'm Craig Kissinger, Director of Human Resources for National Tube Supply. We're a distributor of mechanical tube across North America and also do some machining within the hydraulics industry.
Yeah.
So, talking a little bit about Transfer, as a company, we work all across the U.S., 48 states, and we work with partners beyond just manufacturing, mainly in workforce development, including K-12, community colleges, workforce development boards, nonprofit organizations that have workforce components. I mean, anybody you can imagine that touches workforce development are most likely one of our partners somewhere in the U.S. We're developing programs from after-school programs, in-school, community colleges, or in this case, actually deploying in a work environment for onboarding training. And the goal of what we try to accomplish is helping get more people in a sustainable, thriving wage career pathway. So upward mobility, have the ability to earn high wage and earn careers that are in high demand, and getting individuals both exposed to those careers and then actually trained up and skilled up so that they can perform what an employer needs. So for this specific case study, there were three main components of what we were trying to accomplish and some struggles that I think Craig was really trying to achieve and start solving for. The first being around safety, the second being around the quality of product that National Tube Supply was supplying, and the third being that customer satisfaction, which ties back to both of those. So the outline of what we're going to talk about here is just give you an outline, of what sparked the partnership, how we even started talking in the first place, what that process looked like to develop the partnership, deploy this training inside of their onboarding, what the results have been so far, and then also what the implications are for you. So how could you kind of replicate the successes that we've seen here and deploy it yourself? So first on that partnership spark. Going back again, safety, quality, and customer satisfaction. That was the nexus for which kind of launched our conversation here. Craig, do you want to talk a little bit about what that looked like in 2023 for you?
Yeah, so like most organizations where workforce is a challenge, particularly in a post-COVID time frame, is as we were onboarding employees, we saw an uptick in safety issues with new hires, quality issues, which led to customer satisfaction issues, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all here to satisfy a customer. So in going to a local event, besides doing human resources, I'm also involved in some statewide and local workforce development activities. At one of those activities, I saw a VR technology that hands-on experience regardless of the environment they're currently standing in. So looking at that application and talking to Mitch, understanding what are some of the other tools besides what they do, particularly in the K through 12 space for providing career exploration. What did they do in basic training that would be applicable to our environment, or quite honestly, any environment where we could purchase a tool that we can buy off the shelf rather than have to spend time, energy, and a lot of development dollars in developing a custom environment. The partnership with Transfer allowed us that ability to look at their current curriculum and look at how it would apply just not to National Tube, but to most employers in the supply chain of manufacturing.
And so what you see on the screen here, these are the metrics that you were tracking from the get-go of our partnership. On the safety side, you got 62 different incidents, some of them being near misses, and then 22 of them resulting in clinic visits. And that's expensive, right? That's ROI at the end of the day, or cost from the bottom line at the end of the day. Quality, this was directly related to shipments that were sent out and then had to get sent back and was lost revenue. So over $1 million in mistakes were being made in 2023, and that's by miscutting the length of the pipe or mismeasuring the outside diameter, inside diameter, or the wall size of piping. So just regular human measurement error was a huge contributor to some massive cost overhead costs.
Yeah, so when you think about the work that we do, we are a distributor. So we don't make anything, but we allow other people to make stuff by supplying them the raw materials to make their products. So 80% of our customers are OEMs. So when I talk to individuals, I talk about not only are we upsetting our customers, we're upsetting our customers' customers. So I frequently have this talk with young people when I'm out in the community. I say, how many people have ordered from McDonald's and have gotten the wrong thing? Raise your hand here. If you've ordered from McDonald's or any fast food and have gotten the wrong thing through the drive-thru, how did it make you feel? Sad, right? So when we don't take, if our employees, and we are in University Park, so some of the areas that we recruit young people are very difficult areas, and sometimes they don't have some of those basic skills. So being able to properly measure, utilize a tape measure, somebody talked about that earlier, right? Being able to use a micrometer or a caliper, they may not have that hands-on experience. We were able to look at how could we use differentiated learning in order to upskill our workforce so that we can properly measure OD, ID, and length on our tubes for our customer. Because one thing that I think everybody would agree with, if you cut steel short, it doesn't grow back very quickly. So making sure that it's done properly the right time, you can see leads to major customer satisfaction, either gains or losses. Particularly then, really, the last session talking about human focus, safety first. We are a family organization. We're owned by a European family across the pond, 3 parts of it, who we care deeply about our employees. And the last thing that any one of us wants to do is see our employees go home in a different condition in which they came in. And when you're operating in a steel warehouse that has, quite frankly, tubes that are thousands of pounds, if you are not focused on safety at every single point in your workday, bad things can happen, but they don't have to.
And then the last piece there on workforce turnover, I think we just talked about this in the last panel, right? When you have that workforce turnover, there is cost to that. It's loss of the skill, it's the cost of retraining and all those components. So working on reducing that turnover through higher quality, training, feeling more confident on the job was a big focus of what we were trying to build here too. And so this is, how we started beginning addressing that. Those 3 kind of components were, started onboarding. So new employees coming into the organization, kind of seeing the culture and learning those initial skills again, getting them kind of amplified, if you will. That was where we wanted to start, where we wanted to build this at and start, addressing the issue. And so at the end of 2023, Craig and the team began revamping their entire onboarding process, starting with, hired a training and safety specialist, and then working with us to actually start deploying some of that into their, what had previously been slide decks and videos of a training process to, have more interactive, engaging, hands-on kind of practice without having to take up too much, plant time
for that type of work.
And really what I think it talks to is the question that was asked about culture, right? Is we had to make sure that we had a culture of openness and a culture of acceptance in order to do this. We had been operating for 30 plus years, and we trained people much of the way a lot of the old style manufacturing trained. Well, Mitch, I'm going to show you what I do, and you're going to do it right? And that's the fact of many times what would happen, right, wrong, or different, rather than taking that and capturing that information from that person who's been doing that job for 5, 10, 15, in some cases 25 years, capturing it, documenting it, digitizing it into a learning management system, and then utilizing, I had young kids going through driver's ed training, which is a scary time, but I learned from their example of the model of, okay, they do classroom training, then they go out with an instructor and do hands behind the wheel, and then they have time on their own with mom and dad to further explore that. So trying to replicate that and having a company that believes that people are our future, that we have to invest in them, and then bringing in something like virtual reality technology and just bringing it in and letting everybody from our executives down to people on the plant floor try it and asking, how is this applicable to what you're doing? And do you think if you had this as part of your onboarding, that it would help you be safer and do a better quality job? And the answer was universally yes.
Right, and so these are the three components of like why they decided to go with virtual reality. One was that hands-on practice component we just talked about, right? It's very different to just watch a video and or glaze your eyes over at a video than actively engaging in the learning process of the hands-on component. So that alone was a massive kind of different learning style for them. The differentiated learning we talked about a little bit already, and then especially an engaging tool for younger generations. A lot of the talent coming into these shops now are younger generations that are more adaptive to technologies like this, and so being able to learn in an adaptive way using VR is pretty enticing, right? And it's another great kind of tool for learning, so not as maybe resistant to any of that. And that last component is something we've already kind of talked about, is reduction of off-task thinking. You can't, again, glaze over in a slide deck or a video. In order to progress a simulation, to complete that safety training, you must actively engage, touch things, pick things up, engage in the simulation in order to continue moving it forward. Whereas a video or a slide deck continue going, or a presentation like this, how many people in the room might be glazed over at some point during some of the presentations, right? You're not able to do that inside of a VR simulation. So the next big piece here is like that partnership process. We've talked about this a little bit already at this point, but like how did we actually engage in developing this and deploying it across the organization? So again, going back to training, the first was setting up these training goals. So rebuilding the training workflow for all of the onboarding. So thinking about the entire onboarding, workflow that they were currently doing and reevaluating every component of it, seeing where this technology fits in to that into the training workflow, and then accordingly adding it into there. And then the other piece was doing the annual training, the recurring training for employees. So a refresher course, if you will, every year, coming back and being able to up on some of the skills so that you're always kind of fresh, and if you are potentially forgetting some of the information, coming back and doing that recurring training. The second piece there was a content alignment, so looking at the catalog of simulations that we have, matching it accordingly, the skills, according to the skills that were outlined again as training goals. And then the third piece is that buy-in, which Craig already talked about with his leadership team. So Craig, you want to talk a little bit about these next two slides here, about the alignment and how you guys built this out?
Yeah, sure. So when we looked at our goals, we looked at our ISO documents and the core skills that it took to do our different jobs. And we had to do this regardless. When we hired our training and safety specialists, our goal was to document those processes and look at what are those core competencies and what do we need to do for people to obtain those core competencies. So it started with outlining those and then building the basic building blocks to make that happen. So that really went to our core, creating our workflow. So that workflow we walk through what should that first several weeks look like when somebody onboards. As I said, we were like so many organizations that we would take somebody and just throw them with the most experienced person, and that most experienced person was not the best trainer, was not in the best mood without 10 cups of coffee. And really the learning and the transfer of knowledge wasn't happening. So we broke that down, as I said, more like a driver's ed model where people were doing some classroom learning via computer-based training coupled with going out on the floor, right? So first we built the basic structure, and then we asked ourselves, once we met transfer, where can we utilize technology to further engage hands-on in different processes? As we said, some of our major quality issues were with measuring OD, ID, and length. It's, I guess I will use the word disturbing, the number of students that I talk to in the Southland that can't read a tape measure. And if I talk to some of my executives, they get upset and go, well, I've been able to read a tape measure since I was in the 3rd grade. And I said, well, you have to understand, that's why you're the VP of operations and you're not applying for a job in our warehouse at the age of 50, right? Some of these people, whether they're 50 or whether they're 18, 19, 30, they've never been taught those skills and never had the opportunity to practice those skills. And what I like to talk to our team about is, do people have the capacity for learning? Do they have not just the skill, but the ability and the attitude, right? The skill to show up, the positive attitude that they think they can, therefore they will, right? So then, as we do the computer-based training, we push in some of the VR training in order to reinforce some of that differentiated learning, because we know people learn a whole bunch of different ways, and not everybody can learn watching a computer screen or reading a book. They need to learn by doing. And knowing that these quality issues and safety issues were at the crux, that's really where the rubber met the road.
And so, preparing for the inclusion of VR, so what needed to happen at National Troop Supply in order to adopt this and actually build it in? So we talked about the process. The first was designating a training space. So actually looking at the physical space available. The beauty of it is that it's super versatile and flexible. All you have to have is access to Wi-Fi, to collect some of that information on the back end for the competency-based exams that are in it. But other than that, you need like an arm's length space. So making sure that you've got space dedicated to use for the VR piece. The second was having the right equipment. So, do you need an extended battery pack? How often, how quick or how long in, big sessions are you going to be doing that? Do you have secure storage for the devices? Like, is there somewhere that you are going to be storing those devices when they're not in use so that they are secure? And then the final piece was doing professional learning for the team. So train-the-trainer model, where you had their training director learning how to use the headsets, how to navigate the software, and then teaching the rest of the team how to do that. That's something that we provide all the professional learning for any of the team at an ongoing basis, throughout the entirety of the length of the partnership. So getting everybody prepared to actually know how to navigate the content, and especially as it related to how to use it in the course and the training. And so the third piece was, now that we've done this since 2023, so basically all of 24 and now part of 2025, what have the results been to date?
Yeah, so it's been an exciting journey. Some of the modules that we specifically deployed within the technology, as I talked about, the micrometer caliper training, how to use a tape measure. We did have everybody go through decimals to fractions, fractions to decimals, because again, it's amazing as we interview people and I ask them, what's the decimal equivalency to a quarter of an inch? 0.37? No, a quarter of an inch, right? So sometimes we have to reinforce that. So we did fractions, decimals, decimal, fraction. We also heavily put everybody through the different safety modules.
there's different modules for fire extinguisher training, which is an OSHA requirement, lockout, tagout. The one that I think had the biggest impact when entering the workforce floor was the situational awareness, where an individual's in a virtual warehouse setting and they have positive people coming in they've ever seen, or they played themselves the first shooter games where you got to shoot the bad people but not the good and you lose points. It's almost like that, where you're walking through and you're identifying all the hazards in the facility and brought them to the plant floor with that situational awareness already embedded in their behaviors. So what we found is a significant decrease in safety incidences between people when they're hired at their first year of employment. So you can see here we had a significant reduction in overall incidences, because first we focused on our new hires going through this, and then we started to bring the rest of our workforce through this program as well. On the quality side, you can see we had a significant reduction in quality errors, and when we talk to our employees, that's profit coming right to the bottom line. And that's how I talked about the ROI and justified the cost, is that if I could take just 10% improvement, I can pay for this program for our entire company, right? So how do I get that ROI is by utilizing things such as our quality and safety. And then obviously, because we were more engaging, and besides utilizing for training, we would also bring the tool out to recruiting events so that people can experience career exploration, and particularly with young people, as they saw that we were embracing technology that nobody else in the room was. That helps them join us, and they want to join a company and stay with a company that's looking at not only what can we do today, but what is the next thing that we can do.
Yeah, want to just talk about something that was said in the last panel too around that ROI piece, right? Is having ROI is the foundation for why you make any of the changes, right? You have to have it in the numbers. And so in that first year alone, we're looking at a $200,000 decrease in mistakes. That's a 10x. I think it was like a $20,000 for the first year. And there's a 10x improvement just from that component alone, not to mention the safety and the turnover rate. So improving training, and especially when you have metrics like that are important, like those mistakes and quality metrics that impact your bottom line, that's significant savings and significant ROI on the partnership, and exactly why we'll continue doing this and expanding this to other sites with them in the future as well. So let's talk about funding. How do you make something like this happen? Obviously, I think we made a pretty compelling case of why this can already return an ROI to you. But what else is available? I thought the Catalyst grant that was talked about is a perfect kind of example of what type of resource can be used for something like this. But here's a couple other examples that we have as well. So the first is internal funding, and that's originally the pathway that Craig and the team took, was just internally funding it through the HR and training budget, and using that as a tool and proving that ROI and the value that way. We do multi-year contracts, and so that was one of the things that was really important for us, is setting up a 3-year contract and really trying to see over the course of the implementation, as things smoothed out and the initial implementation hurdle was overcome, what that looked like. And so discounting for that, but then also making that investment in partnership and the commitment to figuring it out and working on this solution. The third one was through apprenticeship funding, and that's something we talked about, and we've worked with some other partners. If you're building apprenticeship programs, how can these types of trainings tie into your apprenticeship programs, and being able to leverage funding available for that. A fourth opportunity is ETIP, and this is something that we worked on together. If you're not familiar with ETIP, that is the Employer Training Investment Program. The Illinois Manufacturers Association, as well as the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, both run versions of this that allows employers to cover half of their training costs. So basically, you'll cover half of the cost of improving your training through dollars. So basically, incentivizing you to go out and do these types of improvements in your training. So there's a lot more information about that from both the Illinois Manufacturers Association and from the Chicagoland Chamber that you can learn about for how to engage that. And then that last one was Catalyst, which I mentioned as well. So plenty of opportunities. One of the things about transfer is that we do have a funding management team, and we work with a lot of our partners to identify potential funding sources or how we can make those things happen. So if that's a worry that you have, I think we can get that figured out pretty easily.
But working with the Illinois Manufacturing Association and explaining how we were using the tools, they were able to help us with that ETIP process. In our partnership with Transfer, they helped spell out what are those different curriculums, because of course they needed the documentation to back it up for specifically on the safety side to help fund this program.
So what are the implications for you? I think we've made some of the case already for what that looks like. But here's a little outline of like transfer and like what we offer and how this might be something that's impactful for you. We have over 330 simulations, many hundreds of hours worth of content that cover not just manufacturing, but aviation maintenance, automotive, electrical construction, diesel technology, hospitality, tourism. We do a lot of training, and we're very good at building that programming out. But inside of manufacturing, these are the modules, so the kind of clusters of skills, if you will, that we built out and that Craig was looking through when he was looking for alignment. So material handling, safety, things like bloodborne pathogen, fire extinguisher, lockout tablet, robotics, situational awareness, power and hand tools, tons of simulations that teach you every single type of tool you could imagine for both power and hand tools. Overhead cranes, that was a big one for National Tube Supply, was being able to show an overhead crane without taking up crane time on the floor and actually doing that. So kind of a precursor to working with the actual crane. Precision measurement, that's a huge one. We just talked about that as well. Teaching tape measures, using micrometers and calipers. All of those math skills in an applied way, and it's not just pen and paper. It's you actually see the tape measure in 3D. You have the numbers hovering over it, so it's a really kind of engaging way to do that. Blueprint reading, mechatronics, and then some electrical fundamentals. So those are some of the core modules that are directly relevant to manufacturing that we've built out. And another way is just as of 2 weeks ago, we just launched something called a pre-employment program for industrial maintenance. So this is a 20-hour full turnkey online learning modules with, coupled with VRs. It's a full curriculum that has little micro credentials as you complete different pieces and a full certificate of completion at the end of it. This is like a perfect bridge program or like a screening tool. So if you're looking at how do you build a workforce and how do you screen somebody that's actually competent and wants to learn, this is like the perfect type of tool to leverage for that. So we work with a lot of workforce development boards to leverage something like this as like a small, short, easy training program that can be used as a screening tool for you all. For candidates, this is something that we've done with high schools for like summer boot camps. Get somebody on a deep dive but quickly into manufacturing. So a really cool new kind of program that we built out that's focused on those pieces. And you'll see it's not only just the skills training that you see here, but it's an introduction to the role, so really talking about the industry and the role. And it's also that resume and interview prep. So it's helping gain and build those soft skills and preparing individuals to be ready, job ready, and working with you all.
And having been involved in this program, when we talk about transferable skills, particularly, they built their first one around industrial mechanic, right? There's a lot of those transferable skills, whether you're going into machining, electrician, whatever that, as Mitch said, we're talking about how can we utilize this in our machining business in Ohio or part of our pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship selection process.
And then one other component I'll mention is that we have an entire dashboard of data analytics on the back end, so like a learning management system, where all of that information from the simulations is being fed back to. So the way that those simulations work is the first half of the sim is a tutorial, but the second half of the simulation is a competency-based assessment. You have to actually do the work. You're getting tracked. You turn the wrench the wrong way, you pick up and use the wrong tool. If you're acting unsafely, you use the wrong PPE. All of that is getting tracked and fed into a dashboard on the back end, so you're actually seeing somebody's competency getting tracked in that way. And so that's all data that you have access to in the back end. You set up classrooms or cohorts for all of this information, but things for compliance or if you're looking at tracking the data, that's the kind of place where that lives. And then this is stuff we talked about already, but we have a lot of efficacy studies now that of real data of things we were talking about on-task thinking, about learner recall when it comes time to actually do the work. How because of how many senses and the way that VR engages you, it makes it much more memorable. So you recall the information when you need to use it more. So we can talk more about all of that information in the studies that we've done on that. And then the final piece is that we actually do recruitment as well. So this is one of our big pieces, is working with middle schools and high schools and with adults and correctional facilities. It's helping individuals explore these careers. So in addition to the training, Craig actually brings headsets out into career days and uses it as a recruitment tool. It's a really great tool to get people to come to your booth and be excited and explore. And so some of the careers that we have available in manufacturing are listed right here. These are short 5-minute simulations, all about just showing you what the job site looks like, getting someone exposed, and helping them kind of identify whether that's the right kind of fit for them. And so here's our contact information. Feel free to take a picture of it. Both of us will be at our booth with actual live demos. You can come and try out the headset, see what it's actually like. Sorry that my video didn't work. I'm happy to email it to you. But yeah, we thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a good rest of your day. And if you are interested in looking and exploring how you can improve your training programs, come talk to us. Thanks. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So hopefully everybody got a chance to take some notes on what you just saw. I think it's a really cool way to get folks engaged, the new generation of the workforce kind of into the pipeline. I know myself, when I was training when I was in financial services and working for a financial institution, they would stick you in the room and you would just read whatever they gave you, or you would just go through these modules and you just click through all the way, right? It was like 30 days of just clicking through these modules. This is actually so much better because you actually get to engage with the technology and the concepts you're learning. And then I remember when I first started in sales, they would give you a binder and you would just read all of these. It was ridiculous. You had to learn the software you would be using to sell the product from pages of a binder, right? Now, this is a very affordable way to get a piece of technology to get your staff engaged and the new generation of the workforce. So with that, I do want to invite everybody to check out Smart Exchange. And Smart Exchange is what we're calling the marketplace of ideas. And those are the exhibitors that are right where you came in. We've got folks in IT and technology. We've got folks in automation. We've got our financial institutions there as well that can walk you through some of the programs they have available for access to capital. And also, it's a great opportunity to meet everybody else in the room. There's quite a few manufacturers here. You all do different things. And like I mentioned earlier, in the metal stuff, we like to team up for impact. And that means teaming up with other organizations, but also encouraging manufacturers to team up together so you can leverage each other's capacity and capabilities so that you can go after larger opportunities. With that, I want to thank you all for being here. And please stop by Smart Exchange. There also is an opportunity to get a tour of MTEC, which if you haven't seen, please make sure you take the time to do that. Dave Gazardis, right over here. Dave, can you raise your hand?
Yeah, so after Smart Exchange, we'll start to meet in the middle of the bridge and take groups and see little MTEC for tours. Okay, Steve, our executive director, will be taking tours. We'll do all the leaders will be taking tours for.
Perfect. So with that, again, I just want to thank you all for being here. We hope to do this again next year. It'll be bigger and better. And thank you all for being a part of this special time. This is our inaugural Forge5 Smart Exchange event. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day and get to experience Smart Exchange outside. Thank you all for being here.